Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all so much for joining us for this month's MSP-Ignite Resource Network webinar. As always, we are excited to be bringing you the Resource Network webinar series to our members and invited guests. All of the presenters speaking in the series throughout this year have made a commitment to provide our membership with actionable insight into areas that can help them grow or otherwise impact their bottom line in a positive way. Before I introduce our speaker today, let's go over some of the logistics and ground rules. We are recording this session and we will be sending you an email after this webinar with a copy of the slides and a link to the MSP-Ignite YouTube channel where you will be able to watch the presentation again. You will all remain muted during the presentation. However, please use the Q&A button to ask questions along the way. Even though we may not get to your question right away, we will make sure to answer all of your questions towards the end of the presentation. We have a great speaker for you guys today, so with a lot of good content, so please make sure to ask your questions. So our keynote today is Michelle Bornstein, who is the CEO of Tech Analytics Group. During the past 20 years, Michelle has been passionate about helping technology organizations leverage their system, processes, and people to impact their business. By optimizing Autotask and ConnectWise along with external applications such as QuickBooks, ConnectWise Sale, and QuoteWorks, she strives to ensure that they are fully perfect, functional, and effective. Though connection coaching, system configuration, process flows, and team members work seamlessly together. With customized training and business reporting, organizations benefit by having real-time financial insights that they can trust. We are very fortunate today to have Michelle here with us today. Good afternoon, Michelle.
Thank you. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can.
Awesome, just making sure. So thanks, Laura. I'm super excited to meet with everyone today, and I always feel honored anytime I'm asked to train the team, to meet with the MSP-Ignite peer group team members, as well as any invited guests. Today, I'm excited to talk about some insights that I've learned over the past 20 years helping technology companies grow. I definitely want to coach on some success strategies so that you all can win in this technology space. And my hope by the end of this session is you will feel empowered through gaining new insights, testing your assumptions, debunking myths, and getting clear on how you can take action to increase revenues with existing clients. So where are we? I want to set the stage and make sure that we're all working through this process together. I also want to recognize that not everyone is at the same place as an MSP. So we're going to talk about some terms. We're going to talk about what we know about being an MSP. And then as we move into part 2, we're going to talk about areas that we can focus on for growth and increasing MRR. So first, I'd like to define a QBR, and Steve asked me to share this with everyone, as it is not something that has to be done quarterly, but it is a business review that is client-facing, strategic in nature, and delivered on a consistent basis. The second is we're going to talk about a new client checklist, meaning everyone is following a plan, everyone has some sort of process that they follow in order to onboard new clients, and I'd like to talk about some assumptions that we're doing there. We're going to move into autopilot time and how when we work on autopilot, it impacts the success of our business. We're also going to talk about risky assumptions that we might make as we go through our MSP support for our clients. We're also going to focus on what a typical QBR script looks like today. So hoping that we have something that we're following for QBRs, but I'm going to take a guess that not everybody who's joining us today even has a script. So we're going to explore that a little bit. And then finally, we're going to weigh the costs and the value of the QBR. My goal is to help you get clear on what is reality for you today with the intent on improving it so you can increase revenues with existing clients. let's jump in with this new client checklist. I would like everyone to take a moment and just think back to that time you began to deliver managed services. To be successful, you're following some sort of process, whether it's written or just in your head, but I just want to have a starting point for what we might be using today. So as we proceed in onboarding a new client, we typically will follow that with deploying tools for proactive monitoring. We then transition to monthly invoicing. And I want to pause here for a minute and just talk about monthly invoicing is the hardest part of what we do because it has to be accurate. It's something that we should be maintaining, month to month. We should be adjusting costs. We should be looking at the quantities that we're billing and just make sure that we're doing it correctly because it can make or break client satisfaction. We then move into providing monthly support. And in this case, this is your team supporting that client that's successfully onboarded, making sure that they have what they need to continue with you for the long term. And then finally, hopefully, we're thinking about quarterly business reviews. So again, does not have to be quarterly, but definitely a strategic review that's happening on a recurring and consistent basis. As you go through this process of new client onboarding, in reality, it starts to get harder and harder. As you grow, you have less time, you're working with many tools, you have a team that's trying to keep up with everything, so it can be difficult to do the final step here of getting the QBRs on the schedule. So let's talk about autopilot. When we're on autopilot, it's not just something that we can flip a switch on. It's more of a pressure that's building time after time, day after day. So whenever we're experiencing onboarding burnout, we're looking at what it looks like to be flying to just get everything done. We have this new environment we're learning. We have new client demands. We're trying to keep up with exceptions and anything that's broken. So the pressure that the team is feeling in order to be successful during the onboarding process will quickly shift them into an onboarding burnout state. Once they move through onboarding burnout, what you'll start to see is it's too hard to onboard and keep everyone happy. And then the next layer is our existing clients are complaining. Something's going on, they have to escalate. You don't have the team to do that. Your team feels overutilized. They don't have the bandwidth to be delivering unbelievable support. So your support starts to slip. And then the next layer of autopilot is you don't have the ability to provide innovative solutions. So no time to learn new tools, no time to go in front of the client in a proactive way. So you're just waiting for that client to come in and say, this is broke, we have to fix it. So trying to make sure that we're not flying on autopilot time, but aware that it's very possible that we are. So in an effort to solve this particular issue, again, we're going to see things cut from our to-do list, and typically that is the QBR. So as a quick self-assessment, before we jump into risks, just think for yourself, do I have a business model that has a checklist? Do I incorporate QBRs today? Do I feel like I or my team is running on autopilot? Are we providing innovative solutions to our clients today? And do we have a process for getting a QBR with our clients? Or is it something that we've been trying to do and failing at? And I would love thoughts at the end of this presentation. So I title this particular slide, Risky Assumptions. And it's based on a true story that happened to a client of mine who's been coaching with me for over 20 years. Like many of us, they had one large account which produced 40% of their total revenue each year. This account purchased products, services, managed services. The account was so large that they had a dedicated team of 6 technicians, along with a dedicated service manager who met with the client regularly to ensure they were satisfied. 2 years ago, my client experienced a major organizational restructure of the leadership team. And this change rippled through the company with the dedicated service manager resigning. The new service manager that came in eliminated the QBR. They didn't have time. They were onboarding new clients. They didn't see the value in them, so they opted out. The large account did not like this change. They asked for meetings. Finally, they gave up asking because they weren't able to solve problems that they were having. What my client did was they assumed that the client stopped communicating, therefore did not want the QBR. They opted out of providing it for them, and by the time they realized it was needed, they needed to have a conversation, the relationship could not be repaired. So, due to the risky assumptions that my client made, they experienced a decrease in staff, a decline in both revenue and profit, a loss of a long-term 25-year client, and finally, most detrimentally, no referrals to future prospects from this account. I share this story because it happens to every one of us. It's painful, but we have tools to prevent it. The problem is not that we don't know what to do. The problem is with the script that we're following in order to deliver on the client QBR. So let's talk about this script. You're probably digging through thinking, what does my script look like? Do I even have one? But in this case, let's assume that you have some plan for a QBR, which is typically gathering data to produce or put out into your presentation. Then you quickly move into scheduling time for the QBR. And in this case, one of my number one client complaints that they're coming to me saying, please help me solve, is my clients don't want to meet with me for the QBR. So then it becomes more of a stalking situation where you're just trying to get people to meet with you for at least an hour. When you finally get the meeting, you present all these performance metrics that you think are super wonderful, that's telling the story of how great your company is and what managed services value your client is getting. You then dive into, here are the services that you're currently paying for, the pricing, and maybe they've been paying that same rate for many years, but you share that with the client with the hopes that when you also say, we would like to increase your services, your pricing will increase, but we're going to provide more value, you're hoping your client will say yes. But it's at this moment that the client is wondering, why should I meet with you if every time we talk, you want to raise my rates? So it can be a challenge, right? You're going to conclude this quarterly meeting or this QBR with the client by answering questions, addressing concerns, and then as you leave, you're thinking, was it really worth it? Was it worth my time, the costs to spend time creating the QBR, stalking the client? Was it really worth it? And then what is the value of that? So let's talk about costs for a minute. Every time I talk to clients about this particular concept, I'm immediately met with, it takes too much time to do a QBR. It costs too much. My highest paid resource is the one that must do this work because they're the experts. And so it's impacting my profits overall. I also have clients who say, I don't have a VCIO, I don't have an expert. So are you telling me to go hire someone because that's going to cost too much? So when we look at this QBR concept at face value, it is very hard to say it's not going to cost anything and it's worth your time. But what I'd like to ask you to do today is test against this face value assumption and see, is there value in the QBR? Meaning, can we develop repeatable processes that will help us scale and be able to transfer across from client to client? Do we really need a VCIO for this particular process? And if there are VCIOs on our call today. I'm not saying you're not needed, but I'm saying let's test against, do you have to do all of the work yourself? And then quite possibly, could we talk about reducing marketing expense that you might have in place today? So when we start to think about what is the value of the QBR, it's not to prove to our client that we're so amazing and great. It's to communicate, establish a connection, grow with the client. So when you do those things, your requirement to market your business shifts. And the reason being is because your client is giving you the referral. The client is doing the marketing for you, and they're doing it for free. So let's recap. My goal in this first session is to just present, what do we know? What do we believe? What script are we following? Is it working? Is it not working? And so I'd like for you all to just take a moment to think about what you heard, which was QBRs don't have to be quarterly, but they do need to be consistent and they do need to be strategic in nature. We discussed a checklist that you may or may not follow. You find a client, you onboard, and then the last step is get them on the schedule for the QBR. We explored what it looks like to be on autopilot. So how do you feel? How does the client feel? What's going on with your support team when they're on autopilot? And how is it impacting the growth of your business? I shared a story about a client of mine who risked opting out of the QBR, and the assumptions that they made changed their organization drastically. Hopefully, I explained enough about, or gave you insight enough about, what does it mean to eliminate the QBR, the risk, and then potentially say,
Michelle?
Oh, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Great. Okay. So in case everyone didn't know, we're in the middle of a very huge storm. So my whole system is off, but I hopefully will stay on and I'll just work in the dark. So it's no worries. Where am I? Dusting off the typical QBR script. So are we going to do it? Can we do it? And if so, how do we make that work? And the last slide, if we can come back, well, I'm not going to go back, was weighing the pros and cons of the QBR. What's the cost compared to the value? So let's jump into a part 2, which is where are we going next? And I want to outline quickly what we're going to be covering next, but I want to acknowledge that there's a lot of challenges with the QBR. So I'm not saying those are going to go away. I just want to give you some ways to solve for them. The second area that we're going to focus on is how do we prioritize our clients? So as we're thinking of what it means to do a QBR on a recurring basis, who are the clients that actually should get them? When do they get them? And how do you prioritize it? We're going to jump to optimizing to increase your revenue, meaning there's going to be core areas that you should focus on during this optimization, which is maximizing systems, breaking the rules, and we're going to break the rules on streamlining content. So we're going to talk about what does our script really need to look like? What does a meeting checklist look like when we go out of the meeting? So we finish the QBR, what should we be looking for to make sure that we've accomplished? How do we empower our people so that they work together as a team? And then finally, what does it look like when we've optimized these QBRs for the win? So let's talk about QBR challenges. And I apologize that this slide is so full and you can see that I just stopped typing because there was no more room. So I do want to tackle the top 4 that I have listed here. So I have too many clients to meet with each quarter. My data is not accurate or missing from my system. My QBRs are too customized to be standardized. And I need a VCIO to prepare and deliver QBRs. And again, that's just someone that's got that level of expertise that you need or you feel that you need in order to deliver QBRs. So let's tackle the very first one, which is how do I scale and provide a QBR to all of my clients? I don't have enough time. I'm going to propose here that we do some strategic prioritization. And with that, it means we're going to identify top clients that look to partner with you and grow with you. These are clients that trust and value your expertise. They will pay for your services and they will refer you to others. This information is coming from research that I did 5 years ago or more and found a book called The Pumpkin Plan. It's written by Mike Michalowicz, and he classifies this as top clients. So I don't want you to think this is just me, but I do have a link at the end of the session so that you can learn more about what he does to prioritize his top clients. As you go through step one of identifying your top clients, you then want to keep them. So he calls this playing favorites, which is going above and beyond a VIP status. He wants you to wow them by over delivering. He wants you to create new services just for them. And before everyone says, wait, we're trying to scale and we're trying to make everything repeatable, he's not saying go and invent new services, but what he's saying is figure out what your top clients want. And they're all going to want the same thing because they're all a similar type of client. Figure out what that trend is, develop the services to solve for that, and then go to market with it. What you'll see is that more clients come in. They are also your top clients. They'll get those same services, and then it just becomes part of your delivery. So when we end this session, you'll see links to this information. I want to shift now. If we're solving for the time that it takes to do the QBR and being able to scale and it not take so much time, then we're going to shift to solving the problem for increasing your revenues through optimization. And here we're going to tackle the last 3 challenges. So number 1, we're going to hit the configuration of systems. We want our data to be accurate. We want our systems to work for us in order to be able to get information. We want to establish repeatable process so that it's not a customized QBR per client. It's something that we can use from client to client. And finally, we want to empower our people. And I'm going to stop for a moment on empower people and say it is not making them take over your company, but it is giving them the tools so that they can grow. And then when they grow, you grow because the client is getting what they need from your team. When you work on these 3 areas of optimization for configuring systems, repeatable processes, and empowering people, you will be optimizing your QBR, which will directly increase your revenues. So let's start with systems. In this case, most of my clients will come to me and say, I can't get data out of my system, so therefore I can't go into a QBR. What I want to propose here is that we use our systems a little bit differently, which is to manage the QBR, know who we need to work on quarterly, know who we need to work on annually, see who's assigned to various tasks, make sure they're on track, and if they're not, do something about it. So in this case, I do have a couple of widgets displayed where we're looking at what's going on, who are our clients, what tasks are out there. And then I want to highlight this widget on the top right, which is specifically for tasks that are assigned to resources and they're due in the next 4 months. And you'll notice that there's 3 different names here. I'm listed because I signed up to do some, but Samuel and Jose are also listed in this example, and not both of them are VCIOs and neither am I. But I do have work that I need to deliver and contribute to the QBR so that our entire team can be successful. We're going to talk about this in the next slide so that you can begin to think about how you can share the workload, get everyone to participate, and not put the burden on one person to try to fix this whole thing and make it happen. So a little bit of a shift from what we're pulling from our system. The second part of this system display is obviously, this is not a ConnectWise view, but I did want to create a sample of what's possible. And most team members that are on this call are in Autotask. So I wanted to focus on the system there. But my ConnectWise team, you absolutely can get this same data out. It just may look a little different. The second part of this dashboard is focused on the type of tasks being performed. So the second row is focusing on how do you categorize the work that needs to be performed in order to complete the QBR successfully. So for anyone who's thinking about putting in a project for this, I'm using the task category, and I've created preparation, content, and presentation. And I am going to show what that schedule looks like on the next slide. Preparation is the pre-work, the brainstorming, the big ideas, the insights that you're trying to gather to figure out what are we even talking about to our clients? What information do we know? The content type of work is building the actual QBR, and we're going to talk about how to optimize that so that it works for you and it's not something that's very cumbersome to build. And then finally is the presentation. So meeting with the client, making sure that we capture that time, but also the action items on the back end, which is communicating what you heard so that everyone has the same information about the client. So I am going to show you this back end on the next slide, which is our project schedule. And I want to focus here for just a moment and say, I do recommend using the project schedule because it gives you a centralized view of the entire life cycle for that client for a year. Could be more, could be less, but to be able to see it all in one place is the key. When you use recurring tickets or reminders on your calendar, it's very hard to keep track of what did we do, what do we need to do now, and what will we do in the future. So being able to see it in the schedule itself is helpful. I've highlighted here also just the key fields that I would recommend populating. Number one is the task category. And by using this, it just gives you an easier way to report where are we spending time? What if I'm running late? What do we need to do here? Estimated hours. I do encourage putting in estimates because it will give you a baseline of what you expect. For me, my estimates used to be 15 hours total because I was not optimizing my process. I was not doing things to work smarter. I was just doing the script. Now, my time dedicated to QBRs is 3 hours in a quarter. I have here an example of 6 hours because I don't want you all to think it's impossible. And I also don't want you to think that you'll never get to the 3 hour mark or the 2 hour mark. Through today's session, I'd like to share how that could happen. I also would recommend using the duration and start and end dates because that's going to set the stage for how long should something really take us. And what I encourage is don't try to cram it all in the last days before you're trying to get a QBR scheduled. Give yourself and your team some time to do the homework part, the preparation and the content, so that you're ready when you go for presentation. And then finally, the resource column is the last area. And you'll notice I have my name assigned to preparation and content, but I'm not the person that's going to present the information. That doesn't mean that Sam isn't involved in this early work but he's not ultimately responsible for getting it all together, but he is responsible for having that conversation with the client. In Autotask, there are also required fields when you're creating the project for the lead and the contract. On project lead, I just encourage the person that's assigned to the actual QBR roadmap to be the person responsible for managing the life cycle. They don't have to be a person dedicated to the account. They don't have to be the VCIO or the owner. They can be someone like a service coordinator or billing agent or administrative person that's just going to keep a pulse on, are we on or off track of this for this particular project? If we're off track, what do they do to escalate it? The last area here is the monthly recurring contract association. And I know that this might be a harder concept because I'm sure that not very many of you have built in revenues to offset the time it will take to create the QBR. But I would encourage, as you think going forward, how do you capture some revenue to offset that cost? Because it is a cost associated with doing business for that client. So just putting it out there to put it on your to-do list. How do we recover the time that we spend preparing and delivering QBRs so that it's not a negative impact on profit, but something that we know is part of supporting our clients? So let's talk about breaking the rules a little bit. And I mentioned that my QBRs went from a 10 to 15 hour process per client, which was horrible, and I didn't want to do them. And I decreased it to 3 hours, which is even sometimes stretching it a little bit. And the way that I did this was by breaking the rules on the script that I thought I needed to present. I needed to prove to my clients, this is all the great stuff that I've done for you. You know, listen to what I have to say. And then, oh, by the way, I'd like to sell you something. So I needed to stop doing that. I learned this information from the Pumpkin Plan, and Mike calls it his client interview. So the rules for the client interview are: don't sell a solution, don't ask how you can serve them better, and don't ask your client to look at how great you are. Don't tell them how great you are. But instead, his do's are: do ask about pains that they experience with the technology industry, not your company, technology industry. Do ask about where they are now and their future goals. And finally, do ask about challenges that they face in their business. So if you've ever worked with me in any kind of way where we've done a discovery chat, you'll hear me asking these questions. And it's not because I can solve all of them, but I like to know, where are you? What are your pain points? What are you struggling with? Because what's interesting is I will hear the same pain points with other clients. Maybe I've solved them, maybe I've not, but I can hear them. So the goal here is don't sell, don't tell anything, but ask questions so that you can learn about your clients. So how do you do this in the QBR? How do you fit this in? Your script right now, I've seen QBR content slide decks from many clients because we talk about this issue and they say, I don't have time. How can I possibly do this? So I always ask, well, show me what your most recent slide deck looked like. I had one client send me a slide deck that was 30 pages long. And I said, okay, how did that go for you? So the pain point is too hard to create, not customizable, couldn't do it from client to client. So we worked through that. What I suggested was, let's streamline this content. So let's start with a cover page, not taking that away. Let's start with State of the Union. So if you are an EOS or traction shop where you're using the EOS model, you will hear them say, start with State of the Union. And the State of the Union is designed to share a little bit about you. Where are you at in an organization? What are you doing? Where are you going? And then you want the client to also share. You want to ask them, what's going on with you? Because a client will typically tell you, oh, this has been great. I'm looking to grow. I'm opening an office, whatever they're doing. Note that, because it's going to immediately go into slide 3, which is the client interview that Mike suggests asking. So to ask these questions, these are Mike's questions straight from his website. They're obviously in his book, and he has others if you wanted to expand on them. But he suggests starting with these 3. What are the biggest challenges you face this coming year? What are the top pain points you experience dealing with the technology industry? And what frustrates you most about vendors in my industry? Notice he's not asking, how have we been? Do you enjoy the service? Do you have any questions or concerns about our team? You added this service recently. Is it working for you? He's not suggesting that you ask something about you personally, but keep it high level, technology, vendors, because what you're going to hear is if they have a complaint about you specifically, they're going to be glad to share it. If they don't prompt them to think about it. He also notes that if you really, really, really want to know how you are doing, how they feel about you, then you can ask, what has been the most positive part of your interaction with my company? And notice that he uses the word positive. He's not leaving it open. What has been, give me some feedback on how it's been to work with my company. He's asking for positive feedback. And there's a reason. They would have already shared the negative in any of the first 3 questions. So this question is getting them to think, what do I really like about working with this vendor? The last part of his process, and the process that I use, is get the referral. And I want to point out that you may not be in sales. You may not enjoy this part. You may run from the QBRs because you just don't want to have to be that salesy in front of the client, and that's okay. When you go to ask for the referral, it's a necessary step in order to reduce the expense that you might have with marketing. So we want you to take that time and ask. A simple way to do it: can you think of someone who would benefit from our services? You're not asking for a name. You're just asking them to think about it. And when they do, they most often will say, oh yeah, I know someone who has these same pains that I do. I'm going to send your contact info to them, and I'm going to have them reach out. When that happens, you now have free marketing. The client is going to champion you. You don't have to go in blind. You're not cold calling. They're just making that connection for you. And then you take it from there when that prospect reaches out. The final slide, wrap it up. Next steps: figure out where you're going, restate what you heard, look back at the notes that you took, make sure that they're clear so that you can take action and be accountable for the next steps. So as you're thinking about the restructure of the system to tell you if you're on track or off track with QBRs, if you're thinking about streamlining content, what do you do with it once you do streamline it? This part is critical, meaning the checklist that you come away with from the QBR is that you were listening and learning to ensure your client's success. You took great notes so that you can see trends across your top client base. And then you're accountable and you take action so that you can help these clients grow and be successful. I want to spend a little time, and I'll make sure that we have some time at the end for questions, but empowering your people to become a team, spending some dedicated effort into making these people that work with you come together to share insights, pain points, and solutions will start to open the door for a team connection. When they do that, listen to them. It's critical that you hear what they're saying so that you can work to improve whenever there's dysfunction in your team. Ask them to contribute to the State of the Union content. It doesn't have to be work-related. It's what's important to them. It can be hobby, dream, family, where they want to go when they grow up, doesn't matter. Ask them to contribute. It helps others on the team learn about them, and it helps your client understand who they're working with and build that connection. You also want to share tasks. If you think back to the system slide, I was proposing that not just the VCIO gets all the tasks, everyone contributes. And through that contribution and collaboration, they have the ability to learn from each other. When people learn, they grow both personally and professionally. So we want to encourage this and empower people to be a team versus just everyone doing their to-do list and trying to get through the day. So how do you know if you're winning at the QBR optimization? In the system space, we're looking for dashboards to help you manage the QBRs and stay on track. We're looking at project roadmaps so that we know we did these things, this is where we're going. And then when clients ask for things like, oh, we have a new group of people coming in, please help us onboard them. You're able to put that in as a task and you can see it on your roadmap and reflect back, oh yeah, I met with the client and here's what they asked for. So you have an instant return on your investment. You'll know what you got out of the QBR. The second optimization win area is processes. We want to see you have the ability to make them repeatable and scale to all clients. Top clients first, then all the rest. We want to see your time be reduced because you've standardized it and made it simple to get in front of the client versus making it complicated with lots of data. We want to see your people optimized because they're working together as a team internally and with the client. So once that team mindset takes hold, you're going to see it start to spread out to your clients as well. It also allows them to grow both personally and professionally. And when you invest in your team so that they can grow, when they grow professionally, then your organization will grow as well. And then finally, an optimization of a QBR win will have a direct impact on increasing your revenues with existing clients. Whether it's helping a client, they want to pay more for services because it's going to help them achieve their technology goals, great. The alternate is they're referring you to your future clients, so therefore they're increasing your revenue that way as well. Action steps. I'm going to click through them fairly quickly so we have time, but implementing project schedules, getting it in the system, get it out of recurring tickets or calendars, creating your QBR management dashboards based on the project so you can see them, simplifying your QBR content so that you can provide value by helping the client learn, implement the client interview questions so that you can hear what's important to them, not what you want to show them on how many tickets you've resolved, but what do they really care about? That's going to be the key to increasing revenues with them. Empowering your team through contribution and collaboration. Solving your clients' biggest pain points. When you do these action steps, they do not have to be in this order. You can do them in whichever order fits your organization and know that it's going to be hard and that you'll have challenges. People aren't going to want to do a change in the script. They're not going to want to share workload. But if you make a conscious effort to say, let's work on this together, the QBR presentation and communication with the client is what we're going for, you will be able to solve your client's biggest pain points and you'll be able to grow. From a deliverables standpoint, if you email me, I will give you the import template for Autotask, as well as a client interview notes template so that you can see how the questions can be asked during the presentation, but then also tracked in a trend manner. So it's a very simple spreadsheet and I do it myself. So when I roll through QBRs, every question I asked, I dump who the client was, and I'll see these are the things that all of my top clients are saying about their pain points. And then I also included links to Mike's PowerPoint, his website, so that you can see what I use to create the PowerPoint content. So I would love to connect and learn more, but I'd also like to open it up to the group for any questions or anything that I could clarify.
Thank you so much, Michelle. I do have one question for you that came from the Q&A. So we have doing one QBR a year with a client. Is that enough, or should there be really a minimum as to how many times you should do this with a particular client?
I would definitely say more than once a year. So maybe a mid-year check-in would be ideal, because on one of those QBRs, you're looking to just hear, where are you, where is your client at, and where are they going? What's important to them? What's a challenge for them? So if you're only seeing it yearly, it might be very hard to develop solutions. It might be hard to ask for the referral. So keep it simple, do a touch point with them, but also don't try to increase pricing or increase the service offering that you have with them. You want them to just have that open time with you to share, for you to learn, and for you to learn how to help them be successful and grow.
Thank you. We don't have any questions. Anything you want to clarify, folks? We do have a question now. I didn't see anywhere in the QBR slide deck recommendation for outlining our MSP recommendations and putting them on the roadmap. Any comments to that?
So absolutely. When you are having that conversation with the client and checking in on what's important to them, if your solutions, when you come back to your team and you say, here's what we heard, here's what this client is saying is a pain point or something that's challenging, allowing the team to collaborate with you or to share, well, I think this could help them. That recommendation absolutely can go right back into that project schedule, and you can either put it in the same quarter that you did the QBR in, or if you say, let's roadmap it and let's tackle this in the next 6 months, add them as tasks to your project schedule so that you can see, we had a conversation, these were things that the client had as wish list items or solutions to the pain points that we would recommend. When you see that in the project schedule, it's not necessarily for time tracking. It's not something that you have to connect to an opportunity or a quote, but it's just that reminder that we need to be having a conversation with the client because this is on our recommended roadmap, and when we believe that it will help solve the challenges that the client is having.
Okay, thank you. So our next question is, if I were to search Indeed to find someone that could maybe be our QBR Caesar, what would I be looking for? How much tech skill, how much CSR skill, etc.?
If you're searching and you really want this position, I always recommend that you're looking for someone who wants to grow the client relationship first. It's, unless you're working with another technology-based type of company, like I work with technology companies, I have to be knowledgeable in the technology that you guys are using. But your person that's building the relationship with your client base maybe doesn't need to have that technical skill. They need to understand that they're working with people to help them grow. They don't need to be selling. They don't need to be coming up with solutions on the spot, but they need to be able to establish a trusted relationship so that when you say, I have an idea that can help solve this problem, you want them to be able to collaborate with you. And you want them to be able to go back to the client and say, we've really thought about this as a team. We have some ideas. Can we chat about them? Because that's the sale. So you want to be able to have them establish that trusted connection first before they just try to go in and say, here's my managed services offering. You said you had a concern about security. Let me tell you about it. You want them to be able to build that relationship first. Does that answer the question?
Yes, thank you, thank you. And another question is, how does this methodology work with true methods or other solutions?
Steve and I chatted about it. I know that this term of the VCIO needing this expert person may be coming out of some of the other methodologies, and this is going a little bit against that. So I'm not going to say that it doesn't work. The My IT process is out there, and I'm not saying you have to get rid of that. If you want to follow someone else's recommendations from a how do we do QBRs, perfectly fine. What I would suggest is test against the assumption that you need to prove how great you are as an MSP. No tickets, quick response times, no backup failures, no whatever. Pull that out of your QBR content and replace it with the client interview. So you don't have to turn off what you're doing and replace everything, but just shift that script so that you're learning about the client to help them grow.
Thank you very much. Well, everyone, thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you so much for your time, Michelle. Very, very great information. We hope the information you received today was actionable and helpful. For those not already participating in one of our peer groups, please reach out to us so that we can discuss the value along with our money back guarantee. Also, please make sure to connect with Michelle. Any type of questions, if anything else come up, please make sure to reach out to her. She'll be able to get in contact with you and give you more deliverables that I know she has available. And please just reach out whenever you are available and any questions that come up. Michelle, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for making it work during this storm. I know it was a little bit of a challenge, but it definitely worked out to the best. So thank you so much. Have a great afternoon, everyone. Take care.